both recording?
Did you fart?
I did.
Stinks.
I'm nervous.
You're nervous?
No.
Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to If She Knew, which is a podcast where we talk about real life experiences, vulnerability, and have conversations about mental health. I'm your host, Tierney. And before we start, if you haven't already, follow on Spotify. And you can also follow or subscribe on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Tierney's Journey, which is Tierneys Journey. So today I am joined with my wonderful, lovely husband. You want to say hi?
Hello.
And today I wanted to get Caleb's perspective on what it was like for me to move in with his family at 18. So to start, we'll give you a little bit of a background so that you kind of understand the situation. So I always had like family conflict growing up, and I didn't really tell a lot of people about it. But senior year, I started to go to Caleb's more often after school. I'd have him pick me up whenever my parents were fighting and there was just conflict going on. And then by the time I was graduating high school, my parents decided to get a divorce, but they were still living together. And my parents wanted to sell the house. We didn't have enough money to afford another house. My twin and I were just going off to college, so we pretty much packed all of our stuff up, brought everything there. We were like hoarding all our stuff at college. And I think the first time was Thanksgiving break that I started to stay with Caleb's family, because I just honestly held a lot of resentment and anger toward my dad, and I really couldn't see him at that time. And it took until I think it was like December when my house got sold and my parents and my siblings were all living with different people, and I started staying at Caleb's house whenever I had breaks. So we'll get into it a little bit. So what were your first thoughts when it was decided that I was going to start staying with you guys? Because I remember this was like, it was like we didn't really have a conversation fully about it. Like I think my mom and your parents kind of talked about it, and then it was kind of just like a thing that at Thanksgiving break I was gonna come over and stay with you for break.
I was pretty nervous. I think it's a lot. I just wasn't at a very good spot mentally. I was adjusting to college. I was adjusting to college swimming, and what it meant to be like an athlete while also studying at the college level. I had not adjusted well at the time, and so then I think coming home after, I think Thanksgiving was the first time I went home because of how many practices I had. And then I had, I think it was 3 or 4 days off, and then we went back in December for practices again. And I just remember I had a almost like a too strong of like attachment to like being home, having like don't get me wrong, alone time is important, but I made it to like the point where like I was ostracizing myself, or like I was taking myself out of situations that I needed to be in order to grow. And so like as much as I hated college swimming, and as much as I like disliked my life freshman year of college, ultimately like it's what I needed. So like to circle back to like how did that feel, like it was hard, and ultimately, like I said, it was just like that boost that I kind of needed. It also helped me realize that like what was actually important in my life. So like for example, like you were important to my life, and it made me realize that like as somebody that grew up doing a sport, like that sport was no longer my identity, and instead it changed to like academics, being a better boyfriend, and kind of like how that shaped my life moving forward.
Yeah, I remember from my perspective, I mean, you probably remember the first time I stayed over Thanksgiving break. As soon as we walked in the door, I basically started bawling. And that was just because it was hard for me because I was still grieving what I had lost family wise. And to see Caleb hug his family and them all be excited to be there. Um, Obviously, like, I'm happy that Caleb had that. But it was also hard to watch because at the time it felt like I didn't have that anymore.
Yeah, I think we were both grieving. I think I was grieving what my childhood was and not realizing the responsibility that I needed to take on. And I'm not trying to compare traumas, but like your experience was significantly worse than me, like learning that I had to grow up. However, like it was because of that because of what you went through, and like me seeing that like you can go through something like that and you can come out the other side fine. Like honestly, like I don't know where I would be without that experience. So
Yeah, not many 18-year-olds would have taken on such heavy conflicts and life changes when you didn't have to, because a lot of this was my burdens, my family conflicts that I was bringing into your life. And I had to grow up really fast. I was losing the last bit of time that I would have had staying home on college breaks with my family. I wasn't going to get that anymore. So I guess, do you feel like you had to grow up too fast because I had to?
yeah, I wouldn't say I had to grow up too fast. I think my I got two answers for this. I think I don't think I grew up too fast. I think my parents and my grandparents and my other life experiences have led me to like being the man I needed to be and being like the partner that I needed to be in order to support you through you going through those life situations. My second answer is like a no and a half. And that's because like I wasn't in a very good spot mentally. So like the therapist I was seeing at the time was kind of telling me that I wasn't developmentally ready to take on the responsibilities of not only like caring for myself but also caring for like another person as a partner, and as someone that would likely, at least from my perspective of being in a relationship, that I would care more for than myself. And so ultimately that did end up pushing me to grow up, but I don't think it was too quickly. I think it was what I needed. And also that was also like the same time that COVID had happened, like when we got sent home. And sure, you were living with my family from Thanksgiving, but then March 13th happened. And I remember my parents picked us up from campus, and then we truly lived with each other like every single day, from then until we went back to school that next September. So I think overall it like made me grow up, but not too soon. It was just, I don't know. I think maybe if I hadn't been raised the way I was, if I wasn't already fairly confident in who I wanted to be, not necessarily who I was, but who I wanted to be, I think it would have been a different story. So, because I wanted to be that partner, I wanted to be like that man, and I just didn't know what I needed in order to become that.
He's gonna just go get that. I know.
Lay down. Why are
If
you
you
so
hear
chaotic?
breathing, it's our dog Moose, who has anxiety and is constantly panting. Did you feel like I interrupted the last few years of like, normally when you go to college, you still live at home and you're on your own, like it's just you and your family? Do you feel like I took away those last few years of you just being with your family by living with you?
I think for a while I thought like that. Like like I said earlier, I was in a state of mourning of like my childhood, and what it meant to then be like to be an adult, and to take on adult responsibilities. However, I had a very good childhood. My parents like went above and beyond to take care of me, and gave me a lot of opportunities that I know a lot of other people didn't have. To be blunt, I know you didn't have, and if anything, that gave me the perspective that I needed to mature, so that I could kind of do anything that I could in order to help and provide you with those opportunities. And ultimately, like, that's kind of what I consider part of my vocation, is that like that's what I need to do in order to help out like students. Like, that's why I'm a teacher, so I can provide those types of opportunities that I had as a kid, because I know of how valuable they are. So like, in no way do I resent you or like in anything like that, especially because like, yeah, it was hard, but like it was a good part of my life. Like I reflect upon it like, well, I mean, that's when I realized that I wanted to marry you. So like, it's overall.
So you don't regret that experience?
No.
I've always been curious because I was going through so much at the time, and you had to be there to support me. Did you ever feel like you couldn't talk about your emotions or what you're going through at that time because I was like right in the thick of it?
Yeah, there were some times. That mostly happened before you fully moved in. That was kind of like when I realized the trend in which we were going with our relationship. Like, there were a few times when I would drop you off and then I would like drive home and I would like pull over and cry like on the side of the road.
I didn't know that.
So like that was hard, because it wasn't like you were doing anything to make me feel like I couldn't share how I felt. I think it was a combination of I didn't really know how to express how I felt, along with the fact that I needed to be the stable thing in your life, and I felt that it would not have been fair for me, at least at the time. Like, I was actively invalidating the way that I felt about the situation, and I felt like it would have been bad for me to tell you how I felt. I mean, obviously I can reflect on that and be like, that wasn't the right thing to do, but that's just what I felt was right to do at the time.
Well, I think like we can both say, I mean, I won't speak for you, but I'll speak for me. Like, growing up, it wasn't normal for us to talk about our emotions. We didn't talk about our feelings. It was like kind of bottled up. I didn't tell any of my friends anything that was going on home. Literally, Caleb was the only person that knew, and that was like a year into dating, that I finally like, told him that stuff. And I was really bad at talking about my feelings. I was just quiet and sad. I wouldn't really talk about anything. So I think that also probably plays in it for you too, because you can't really fully understand how I'm feeling either. And I was so intertwined with what was going on to me that I was not able to think outside of me, if that makes sense. Like, I was struggling to think about how other people were doing at that time because I was so hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's trifold. Like, I think we both had a communication problem, but we were 18. I think we had a lot of things going on to the point of like neither of us were. I understand that like we had families that loved us, but didn't always show how to handle appropriately other emotions. And that's not a fault of, I think, either of our families. Like, ultimately they're products of how they were raised and how they learned how to cope with emotions other than happiness, I guess, or like other than like basic ones. And so those inexperiences and the way we were brought up, and again, kind of like that maturity point of we didn't really know how to express how we felt in such a serious situation, that, I mean, we just did the best we could, and ultimately it was just enough to get us by at the time. And so again, like, I look back at it and I acknowledge that it was really hard. However, I wouldn't change it. Obviously, I would rather you had a better situation than
I think
than
that's
that.
a
But
obvious
yeah,
thing, but has the washer been on the whole time?
the washer has been on the whole time.
Do you think
So-
you can hear it?
You could probably hear the washer in the background.
Sorry about the washer in the background if you can hear it.
Worst case scenario, we'll just make a script of what everything we just
Bear
said.
with us. This is the first official time we're recording an episode.
And we have life going on, like moose breathing in the background
Yes,
and
so
chewing.
if you hear stuff, this is probably the least professional one we'll get. But, you know, that's real life. I give Caleb a lot of credit for, like, everything that he's done to support me and to stay with me throughout this whole experience of my life changing, when you could have easily been like, you know what, I'm good, I'm gonna go off to college and, you know, be single, be whatever. So I guess, what would you tell your younger self when you were going through this, or someone who is in a similar position as you were at the time? So someone in high school or college that's significant other is having family issues, or whatever is going on in their life is causing them to need to live with you and your family.
So I think ultimately it would go down to, like, your gut reaction and your feelings are valid. You should know that how you feel is okay. If you feel like, hey, this is all right, we're gonna get through it, then that's great. You're ahead of where I was. Just know that you're not alone, and sometimes seeking wisdom from lots of different places is helpful, but it's also, in the other direction, can be hurtful. There's a lot of people whose advice I regret following. I think, yes, the early part of college is you figuring out, or at least that part of your life, is you figuring out who you are. And so, like, I think of specifically, like, my therapist, like, she gave me an example where, like, a relationship should be like, there's wisdom still in it, but hear me out. In a relationship, you should have, like, 2 oxen, and you're both walking with the yoke of your relationship, and that you should be both pulling at the same strength at the same time. And I feel like that's not a very good analogy, because that sometimes your partner can only do 20%, and then it's your responsibility to pull the 80%. And so, like, there would be times when we were still learning how to live together, where, like, I thought I was setting a boundary, but in reality I was not attuning to what you need, and ultimately that hurt us within the relationship. So I think it's better to listen to what the other person needs and to provide, and to, like I said, kind of just learn how to communicate quick and learn how to communicate early. Because I feel like if I would have just told you, hey, I can only give 20% right now, I feel like you would have adjusted, and it wouldn't have put you in positions to kind of just guess where I'm at. Because, like, there were times when I would shut down because I wouldn't know how to handle my emotions, and I was too scared to say something because I didn't want to hurt you, but I was also too scared to say something because I didn't want to be alone, like, you know what I mean? So, like, I felt like by shutting down, I was keeping, like, you close but not informing you. But then that was also the flip side of, like, me manipulating the situation in order to like keep you there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also it's just like important to say that no emotion is bad to feel, if that makes sense. Like, if you're angry, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel upset, as long as you feel your emotions and just talk about how you're feeling. Because otherwise you're bottling all of that up,
Yeah.
and it's just prolonging a situation that could have been resolved earlier.
Yeah.
If you're just open about your feelings. And I think that's something that we have to normalize, because, I mean, like I said before, growing up, we didn't really talk about our emotions like that. And I think it's harder to guess how someone's feeling. And when you fill in the blanks yourself, you can feel like somebody hates you or is angry at you when that might not even be the case. So I think it's important to understand that whatever emotion you're feeling, it's okay to share that and talk about it.
I agree. I think there's a point to where like a lot of young people use that sometimes as an excuse to be blunt. Because I know I used to use that as an excuse. I sometimes still do, to be unnecessarily harsh. Like, yes, it's truthful that I feel those emotions, but there's a delicate way in which you can express those emotions. And so, yes, there are times that you need to like be comfortable to communicate. Like, you as my wife, like, I know that I can confide in you emotions, like the way that I feel about certain situations, and communicate that with you. However, I think sometimes people can take that as, oh, I can be unapologetically me and then tell you a hurtful truth.
Yeah.
And to the fact that like, if I followed that example when I was like 18 or 19, like, I think I would have really hurt you in some of the things that like I would have said out of knee-jerk reaction to the situation that my life was in at the time.
Yeah.
So,
And like I said, it's okay to feel whatever emotions you need to and to talk about it. But just because you are angry, you don't have to yell or fight in those ways. It's more so about, like, kind of bouncing off of what you're saying, feeling those emotions and talking about those emotions, but doing it in a way that you're having a conversation about it, and it's not an argument or a mean comment. You're having a genuine understanding of what's going on.
can I do a plug?
What are you gonna plug?
My wife's really cute.
Okay.
Listen to her podcast. Rate 5 stars.
Rate 5 stars. Follow.
Click that share button.
Yeah, we're
all
gonna
right.
hopefully be a little bit more organized next week, but you know, we're making do.
I think we were organized. I just think Moose is chaotic and you can't really organize around
Look
him.
how adorable though.
Oh, he looks...
I don't even know if they can see him. I hope we were in camera this whole time. I don't even know. Okay, well, I hope that everybody's having a great day whenever this is posted. And I hope that this was helpful for someone who's experiencing the same thing. I know for a long time I didn't even share about it because I thought how many 18-year-olds are living with their boyfriend's family. And then once I started talking about it, I came to realize that there was quite a few people that I went to college with who were experiencing very similar situations. So once again, proves the point of being open and having those conversations. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody.